Gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Have you ever heard it's not the size of the ship, it's the motion of the ocean? Well, I'm here to tell you that she lied. And this is the guy she told you not to worry about. I'll be your huckleberry. Okay guys, so as you can see from that incredibly cheesy intro, this is the Uberti Wyatt Earp Tombstone Buntline 10-inch special. Wow, that is a mouthful. Essentially, what we're looking at right here is going to be a recreation of the movie gun. So the legend goes, these Buntline specials, so named after the dime store novelist who made a lot of the gunfights in the American West famous, selling to people on the other side of the country. He went into Colt and said, hey, I want to get some of these guns minted that are going to be a special one-off run that are going to show just how absolutely baller these guys are that I have made famous. And so, as the legend goes, Wyatt Earp got one of these guns. In the movie Tombstone, you see him receive one of these guns and he carries it and uses it. The reality is much more mundane. More than likely, if he did get one, he would have immediately cut it down. This is not exactly a gunfighter's gun. It is a 10-inch barrel, so the legend goes the Buntlines that Colt supposedly made and sold were 12 inches. However, there are no records to prove that, so movie legends be movie legends. But it is a sick piece of American literature and also a very cool film gun. And we're just going to shoot it, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more. So let's get on with it. And as cool as this gun is, guys, we have to take a second to thank our channel sponsors first before we keep on going. And that's going to be Shepherd Defensive. Great American products made by a great American family. Stop in, check them out. They have everything from your EDC belts to your war belt supplies, from the belt itself to all of your pouches, IFAKs, dump pouches, pistol pouches, rifle mag pouches, as well as rifle slings in a wide diaspora of camo colors. Everything from Fleck Tarn and Chocolate Chip to M81 and Desert Tiger. Check them out, guys. Link in the description down below for 5% off your order. Buy American. Now back to the video. So guys, the Uberti Buntline Special is going to come with the shield engraving, just like you see in the film. Super cool. Again, it's just going to be a recreation of the movie gun. So not any kind of historical representation here. You're just seeing essentially a Hollywood firearm brought to real life as you see it on your tiny little screens as you are pooping when you're supposed to be working. This particular firearm is going to be chambered in 45 Colt, which is going to be this big stick you see right here, which is going to be considerably longer than 45 ACP, but this came before. So I guess you could say this is the OG God's Caliber. So let's just take some practical accuracy real quick. So a little bit of history, I guess you could say. With revolvers, you load 5, not 6, and that's because you never want to rest the hammer on a loaded chamber, because on a single action army revolver such as this, there is always the potential possibility that the hammer could set the primer off because it is fully resting on the casing of the chamber that the revolver is turned to. So with that out of the way, let's get going. So it's got a bit of felt recoil in the hand, not unlike a 45 ACP. It's very smooth though, I will say. As far as the practical accuracy of where it's shooting, if we just walk right up here, I'm about 6-ish yards away and I fired 3 shots and they're pretty much right in the head where I wanted them. So sometimes these guns can print a little high or print a little low. This one seems to be pretty much right where I wanted it to be. So we're shooting aces. So let's walk it back just a little bit and we'll keep on going. So we're about 10-ish yards away from the target. We're just going to see where it's going. Shooting it one-handed because that's how they used to do it. So that's what we're going to do. I will say it's really hard to hold on to this wooden grip with just a single-handed stance, but we're not doing any kind of speed shooting. This isn't USPSA with 2011s. So not bad for my one-handed shooting. You got one there, one here, and then it looks like one there. So pretty much right in the heart-sized target. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. And again, 45 Colt, guys, it's going to be a much longer, but it's a softer recoil impulse than 45 ACP if I can equate it to a modern cartridge. These are Hornady cowboy loads, 230 grain, so they're going to be a little bit less potent than your like bear loads or some of your other 45 Colts that you can get that are like maybe chambered for a Winchester or something like that. So, and with that little factoid history nerdism out of the way, where would we be with a cowboy gun if we didn't do a little fan action shooting? I mean, it is a Hollywood gun. What better than to recreate some Hollywood style shooting? So, that's cool. Yeah. He's dead, but it's not about accuracy when you're fan firing. It's about looking cool and fly as hell while doing it. I think that's going to do it for the shooting, guys. These bullets are hella expensive, and we are poor on this channel, as I like to say. So let's take it over to the bench, and I'll break the gun down just a little bit further. Okay, guys, we're going to break down a little bit more detail about this Buntline special. So let's start off with a caliber comparison real quick. So 45 ACP versus 45 Colt. I mentioned it earlier in the video, but I kind of wanted to give some context and mention some things about it here and now. 45 ACP was designed to primarily operate in a semi-automatic pistol, specifically the 1911. So with a 230 grain bullet, it's going to be right around the same dimensionally as the 45 Colt. The only difference that you need to keep in mind is that 45 Colt was designed with black powder, so much lower chamber pressures and therefore much less energy at the muzzle than 45 ACP. However, with modern day cartridges and modern day smokeless powder, 45 Colt exceeds well above 44 Magnum in terms of ballistics with the right hand loads with 250 to 255 grain bullets. So let's talk about the gun itself with those ballistics comparisons out of the way. Who's the gun made by? It's made by Uberti, which to my knowledge is a subsidiary of either Pieta or it escapes me at the moment, but it is an Italian-made revolver, which seems to be where the majority of these Colt replicas are coming from. They're excellent quality firearms. I've seen tons of Ubertis and Cimarrons and Pietas over the years, and they're all exceptionally well made. I would love to get my hands on like a Richards Mason conversion of like an 1851 Navy or one of their man with no name revolvers for the Clint Eastwood style. One thing I'll point out about this, it is not a true 12-inch barrel. It is only 10 inches. And I did not confirm, but I would be willing to bet money that that is the length of the barrel that they used in the film, because the rumored length and the mythical proportions of the Buntline special were 12 inches out of the Colt factory, even though, as I stated earlier, there are no sales records at the time that the gentleman who was named Bunt, I think, was the one commissioning from Colt and going in and asking for these guns to be made in order to further the legend of the men that he was fictionalizing for East Coast readers. So how does the gun shoot and operate? It's a single action revolver. For those of you who don't know, single action means that you have to fully cycle the hammer by hand, and just so that we're clear. You have to fully cycle the hammer all the way back to get one pull of the trigger, which is why you saw me loading 5 rounds instead of 6, because even at half cock, where this is technically a safe position, there is the potential possibility for the hammer to fall onto a live round. And you probably can't see it from where I'm sitting here, but hopefully we'll get some better camera angles that will run, that will showcase in this tiny gap right here between the cylinder wall and the rear of the frame, the firing pin is actually going to come to rest right on where the primer would be. So you would carry 5 rounds instead of 6 so that you had 1 safe. I don't know how many people actually carried that way, but I believe Texas Rangers and law enforcement carried that way for years until further iterations of double action revolvers were able to create a more safe carrying condition, in which case you could, with a speed loader and half moon clips, you could do 6 rounds. I love revolvers, guys. I always have. I grew up on cowboy films, Hopalong Cassidy and Roy Rogers, and what was his name? He owned the Dodgers for a short amount of time. He was known as the Singing Cowboy. His name escapes me. I will put it here when I remember. And Clint Eastwood, can't go without mentioning, Clint Eastwood and the Duke. Everyone loves John Wayne. I would love to get, at some point, my hands on, all of those guns at some point. We'll see where the channel goes, but that's the plan. But as far as a replica of the gun from Tombstone, I'm actually not as big a fan of the movie Tombstone as I am the film Wyatt Earp. I prefer the slightly more historical retelling in Kevin Costner's version as opposed to Tombstone, even though I think that Dennis Quaid did not do as good a job as Doc Holliday as Val Kilmer, rest in peace. And just a fun bit of trivia, in that film, all of the gun twirling and everything, Val Kilmer made sure to learn how to do so that he would give as faithful a recreation of Doc Holliday as he could. Doc Holliday was known as a habitual drunk womanizer, and he was quite handy with a Colt .6, even though no one ever carried anything this ridiculously long. And so the rumor goes, as I think I may have mentioned earlier, as soon as Wyatt Earp supposedly received one of these firearms, he immediately cut the barrel down. As anybody who carried a gun for a living would immediately recognize the need for a much shorter platform, because you would just get immediately outdrawn in a life or death situation if you had to haul around this ridiculously oversized gun. How does it handle accuracy? As you can see from the shooting portion of the video, it was actually right on the money, especially for one-handed shooting at about 15 yards. You have to remember that with smokeless powder and modern bullet design, we are able to achieve much greater accuracy than they were with black powder and hand loads back in the day. So the average gunfight was taking place at 10 to 15 feet, sometimes shorter. There's actually a really great clip in the movie for Unforgiven with Clint Eastwood that I think shows the best representation of what a legit gunfight would have looked like. Or Kevin Costner and Robert Duvall's movie Open Range, where they're just dueling in the streets, and it's slow, it's methodical, it's very violent, and people don't go down with one bullet. And that's just the reality of carrying a gun like this, is that people often died later on from lead poisoning or blood loss rather than the bullet itself. So again, the fit and finish, extremely well made, guys. Real wood grips. I was worried that the fitment of the shield right here was going to dig into my hand as I was shooting it. That's not the case, even though, and again, I'll show in the pictures, the topmost portion of the shield does protrude from the grip just a little bit. It's not a problem when shooting the gun. The loading gate is tight with no play. The cylinder has a little bit of play in it, but then again, it is a single 6. So it looks like you have to pull this screw in order to pull the retainer in order to get the cylinder out. I'm not going to do that for the purposes of YouTube, but just inspecting the play back and forth and listening to the tension of the cylinder as it's actually turning, as well as feeling how smooth it's pivoting on its rotational axis. It's a very well constructed firearm. Very, very few things that I would point out The one thing I did notice was the extractor got a little sticky, but that could be because I was shooting cowboy loads and the brass may have expanded just a little bit to take up that interior cylinder wall, spacing just a little bit. But with a rimmed cartridge like 45 Colt, it's actually pretty easy to get it out. It's not too big of a deal at all. So who is this gun made for? Well, primarily for people who love the movie Tombstone, but secondarily for people who love collecting a portion of American culture. Like I said earlier in the video, these guns were reportedly to have been made by Colt in a very small number for a very small number of people, Wyatt Earp being among them. And as such, it really generated a big, I guess you could call it a legend surrounding the lawmen of the American West that really helped to define how really Hollywood and the silver screen made Westerns for at least the better part of the 20th century. I mean, some of the very first silent films were cowboy movies. The fascination of the American West has always been a focal point for storytelling in American culture. And to this day, we're still enamored by it. At least I am. Tales of just, lone gunmen standing against overwhelming odds and being able to overcome it with the help of a Colt single action army revolver and a little help from the Almighty to survive whatever it was that they were running into. And even Wyatt Earp, who was in countless gunfights, was never struck by a bullet and then went on to actually sit in on some of those early films in Hollywood to advise and give constructive criticism in his later years. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. So I think that's going to wrap it up for me, guys, on this particular gun. It's really simple. There's really not much that you can really say other than to praise the ingenuity of Colt and just the outright reliability and ubiquitousness, if that's even a word, of the Colt single action army revolver and how it completely revolutionized warfare in the early portion of the 20th century. I mean, you did have revolvers earlier than that, and again, those were Colt iterations as well. I believe the not the Colt Walker, but the Colt Patterson was technically the first revolver that was used by the military, at least in that capacity. But revolvers have always been a mainstay for American culture. And I think that this particular example showcases much of that spirit and embodies the soul of what both Hollywood imagined as well as what the reality of the situation was. So I'm going to leave it there, guys. Like the video if you liked the video. Subscribe. It helps a ton. Guys, I cannot believe how far we've come. It has been a wild ride over these past 5 months, but I am so grateful to everybody who has subscribed and left a comment. I truly appreciate it. I am looking so much towards making more videos in the future and hopefully more cowboy gun content as well. Again, leave a comment down below. Sharing and liking is the best way to show support for the channel and help me in the algorithm. Thank you so much, guys, and I will catch you guys next time.